welcome to Writers Week Day 2. First hour, you had such a treat yesterday, and now you get to see your first student period of the week, which is always super exciting. Yeah, we can give that a round of applause. Absolutely. So before we get started, of course, we need to say a few thank yous. First, we want to thank the boosters for helping us make this week happen. So if your parents are members of the Booster Club, please go home and thank them for all they do to make this week possible for us. Of course, this week would never happen without Mrs. Ank and Mr. Anderson, so let's give them a round of applause. Thank you to the tech crew for all they do to make sure we can hear everyone and see everyone. And thank you to you for being a wonderful audience yesterday. We are so excited to hear from these wonderful, brave, brilliant writers behind me. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Sharon to start us off.
Thank you, Ms. Braverman. Hi, I'm Sharon Park. I first want to give a shout out to Miss Ank's first period. This piece comes from my experience growing up bilingual with the Korean language, Hangul, as my first language. It's a narrative navigating the small, sometimes funny, sometimes painful gaps between languages. A flying horse is harmless, a horsefly is not. Korean is not short on English. It appears on storefronts, menus, subway ads, and the sides of paper cups. At first glance, it feels modern, global, seamless even. Only after listening longer do you realize the English is not quite English. Hangul itself is over 500 years old, originally developed to replace Hanja and make literacy accessible to ordinary people. But much later, another linguistic layer settled in. In the 1950s, after the Korean War, American military bases brought with them objects that didn't yet have Korean names. English words arrived not through textbooks, but through supply crates. As Korea rebuilt itself, globalization and media solidified English, not just as a foreign language, but as a symbol of Korean modernity. Linguists call this lexical borrowing, when a language adopts foreign words and reshapes them to fit its own sounds and rhythms. In Korea, borrowing accelerated dramatically in the mid-20th century, producing what we now casually call as Konglish. English loanwords adapted with Korean pronunciation. A tank becomes tanku, an air conditioner becomes aircon. My parents were born and raised in Korea, then came to the US in their late teens and early 20s. They've spoken English for over 30 years, long enough that it feels natural until it doesn't. Final consonants still attract extra vowels. Bed becomes bedu, desk becomes desku. Sentence structure sometimes drift. Korean subject-object-verb order goes into English's subject-verb-object conversations. I, apple, eat. I eat an apple. Nothing is technically wrong, it's just everything is slightly off. Speaking two languages I've learned doesn't mean you're perfect at either. It means you're always negotiating meaning. Korean is a language built on politeness. Age, experience, and social distance is encoded directly into grammar. One afternoon in a cafe, I referred to an older man using the wrong honorific. The sentence was grammatically correct. The words were polite. The effect was not. The room went quiet. He stared at me like I personally dismantled the concept of respect. I was corrected before I could finish my drink. I had known the words, I hadn't understood the weight they carried. When my sister was 6, she watched Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus and decided she wanted a Pegasus toy. She didn't know the word Pegasus, only that it was a flying horse. My sister explained it carefully. My mom noted, opened Google, and typed exactly what she heard. Horsefly. What followed was not magic. For the next 2 hours, my sister sat frozen on the couch as Google Images introduced her to giant blood-sucking flies with bulging eyes and needle-like mouths. My mom, alarmed and earnest, explained in detail how dangerous they were, how they bit livestock, how painful the bites could be, how you absolutely did not want one anywhere near home. Every word was translated correctly, every explanation was sincere. My sister cried herself hoarse. A flying horse had become a nightmare insect, not because of a language barrier, but because of a missing layer of understanding. Everyone involved trusted language more than intention. Oxford Languages defines language as, quote, the principal method of human communication consisting of words used in a structured and conventional way and conveyed by speech, writing, or gesture, unquote. It's a clean definition, a correct one, and still, it feels incomplete. Language is also guessing, it's context, it's knowing what someone is reaching for before you decide how literally to listen. I'm not particularly good at either of the languages I speak. My Korean is clumsy in formal spaces, my English carries echoes of another grammar, but somewhere between Pegasus and horsefly, between honorifics and vowels added where they don't belong, I've learned how to carry meaning anyway. Not fluently, not perfectly, but enough. Sometimes language fails, sometimes it improvises, and sometimes, if you're lucky, it still gets you close enough to understand what someone meant, even the words never quite land. Thank you. All right, next up is Victoria.
Hello, everybody. Before I officially start off my speech, I would like to mention that there's a trigger warning for my piece. It is about concentration camps. So if you need to leave the room at this time before mentions of that comes up, please do so. This piece is called A Search for Humanity. Humanity. It's an interesting word. A Google search will say that humanity is showing kindness to everyone, no matter who they are. But has human race done a good job of doing that? Yes and no. Last summer, when I went back to visit my home country, Poland, I visited the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. I'll let this poem speak for it. This poem is titled, I Know How Death Smells. Death isn't just going to another world, not a switch from body to shell, not peace. Death is rotten meat. It has a foul odor, it's soft and yet fungi, growing worse with time, even if we forget about it. We may forget about it. They say time heals all wounds, but what happens when you don't learn from it? What happens when it destroys people's homes, all within seconds? We don't learn from history. The meat gets more rotten, it breaks down, molds come to surface, it turns dark, slimy, impossible to notice. Yet no one does anything to inspect it, to learn why it got there, why it's multiplied. Because people think it will go away, so everybody lives like it's non-existent. Eventually, it turns into gas and liquid. It turns into fertile soil. It looks normal to anyone, yet people will say whatever. And in this same very year, I have seen kindness that people expressed within a lifetime in a matter of few weeks. My own peers have shown up for me when I needed them, even as much as taking care of me. Most human beings are a mix of evil and good. We have committed the biggest kindnesses and yet the most vile acts we fear to name. We aren't good, we aren't evil, we're humans. So today I ask you to look at your classmates, acquaintances, and the ones you call close. Show kindness that is unforgettable. Show kindness that is forgiveness. Show kindness that allows people to show themselves without judgment. Show kindness that is appreciation. Show kindness that allows for people to know that you are the definition of love. And I say that because humanity like that saves. The truth is you never know what someone is going through. You don't know what impact your words will have on anyone. So why not be kind? Because you don't know how their life looks under the mask. You don't know if they hide scars. Find your humanity. It saves people. Next up is Jessie.
Hey guys, shout out to my amazing mom and amazing youth pastor Shimmer that came here to watch me this morning. And shout out to Mr. Teschner's first period English class. Before winter break, I brought out my testimony and I decided to share it here with you guys today, so I hope you all enjoy. And please don't hesitate to find me if you have any questions. Jesse grew up in your typical Christian household. His family went to church every Sunday, and he went to Awana every Thursday. Awana is a weekly event at churches where you memorize verses of the Bible to earn points for awards. Jesus was an important figure in Jesse's early life, but the love for him wasn't his own. He'd memorized verses so focused on getting points that he wouldn't stop to let soak in and apply the deep, life-changing knowledge contained within the verses. Jesse accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior when he was 10 years old, but his faith wasn't very strong. He definitely loved Jesus and believed that he died on the cross for his wrongdoings, but he wasn't making Jesus the first priority in everyday life as he should have. He'd hold on to worries about what other people thought of him, as well as anxieties from tests and overwhelming negative emotions, getting nowhere trying to figure out everything and bear things on his own. He wouldn't be able to fall asleep at night, being stressed about school and life, because if you haven't found out yet, life is really difficult on your own. It wasn't until Jesse started going to middle school Bible classes that he started to understand what it means to live out his faith, to share the good news of Jesus Christ. And he spoke of this: God is the creator and king of the world. He created everyone to know him and experience his love, so they should obey and follow him. Unfortunately, everyone has sinned against God. They've lied, used foul language, worried about their outward appearance to others, and tried to fit in with the wrong people. Since God is perfect and they have sinned against him, the reality is they're destined to be separated from him for eternity if they choose not to be in a relationship with him and instead live life their own way. But thankfully, God in his great mercy and love for them sent his one and only Son to pay the penalty for their sin, rise from the dead, and will come again to judge the world. They can be saved by trusting in Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Trusting Jesus means to have faith in God, to be saved by his grace alone, not by any good works. It means they confess their sin, accept Jesus as Lord of their life, and receive his free gift of deliverance from sin to life. The best part is, God wants to have a relationship with them. This means they can talk directly to God and tell them whatever's weighing down on their hearts. After understanding what it means to live out his faith, Jesse realized how much he needed God in his life to guide him through raging seas and carry his anxieties he can never himself. Following Jesus has changed Jesse's heart to desire to follow God more, instead of his old broken ways of desiring only what benefited himself, not caring about the people around him. He follows God not just for what he can do for Jesse, but because of what God can do through Jesse. Since Jesse's been working to make Jesus the first priority in life, he's experienced joy beyond what any words can speak. God has carried heavy anxieties of overwhelming schoolwork and broken friendships off of Jesse's chest that he thought he could never get rid of, allowing him to sleep so soundly on those nights when he couldn't fall asleep. Jesse's realized, though, that life with Jesus isn't easy and laid back. To be fully transparent, his journey with Christ hasn't been a straight line. Many people think that they can't have a relationship with God because they've sinned too much or there's no hope for them. But Jesse wants people to realize that's anything but the truth. For example, his close friend and mentor, Shema, struggled in high school, trying to fit in with the wrong people who did illegal activities and bullying other kids to try and fit in. But once Shema found meaning and purpose in Christ, his life has been filled with amazing joy, and he's been able to share that with many students like Jesse. When people sin, God hates the sin itself, but he always loves everyone because of the sacrifice that Jesus paid for on the cross. Jesse follows Jesus for many reasons, but here are a few. Jesse is someone that he can talk to anytime, anywhere, about anything that's weighing down his heart. God's blessed Jesse by giving him strong friendships that have lasted for a long time, and he's given him many unique talents and hobbies. Lastly, Jesse follows Jesus because he's a firm foundation that hasn't and will never break, allowing Jesse to put all his hope and trust in him. With Jesus, anyone can do hard things. Thank you. All right, up next is Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Stradale, and I want to shout out Miss Marsh's class. This is a story about what it's like having a sister. I've gotten detention one time at Fremd. 2 years ago, when I was a freshman, I had come late to school so many times that I ended up with a lunch detention. My sophomore year, I was late almost every day again, but luckily my first-hour teacher was more lenient and didn't mark me tardy. This year, the real reason I don't have many tardies is because my little sister is a freshman. She has to be at school by 7:15 or else we're late. The problem that we have this year is when we wake up and get ready at the same time, we never stop arguing, especially about clothes. My clothes, of course, is the one thing that made me get my only tardy of the year. The day before my tardy relapse, I went into her room to wake her up and saw that she was wearing my pajamas. I asked her why she was wearing them, and she said sorry, even though she takes them every day. This girl went into her closet, and I watched her pull out my sweatpants. I asked why my sweatpants were in her closet, and she said they were just there, as if she didn't put them there herself. I tried to let it go, telling myself it was just one pair of sweatpants, but then she fully pulled out my sweatshirt right in front of me. I literally just watched her open her closet and take out only things that belonged to me. At that point, there wasn't much I could do, so I went back to my room to get ready. Then, as we were leaving, she slipped on my slippers. And I realized that literally everything on her body was mine: my sweatshirt, my sweatpants, and my shoes. The next morning, she asked if she could wear one of my sweatshirts. I said no because she had worn my clothes the day before and never cleans or puts them away. Later, I saw her peeking into my room, clearly trying to sneak in. When I came back, she was standing at my door, holding one of my sweatshirts and said, "Can I wear this? I have no clothes." I told her no and threw the sweatshirt back into my room, but she took it anyway and put it on. We ended up arguing in front of my dad, who took both of our phones and said he wasn't driving us to school. This punishment was especially frustrating for me because I'm 17 and I'll never be able to drive myself. My brother can drive, most of my friends can drive, my parents can drive, and people younger than me can drive. But I can't because of my visual impairment. I'm already so limited with independence, and losing my ride made it feel even more unfair. Most people my age don't have to think twice about how they're getting to school, but I will always have to rely on other people for help. My brother ended up driving us to school, though. When we arrived at school late, I wasn't too worried because I had walked into class late so many times in the past. But this time was different. When I got to my class, there was a note on the door, one I could barely see. It said the class is in the auditorium. I forgot that my teacher had told us the day before to meet in the auditorium. I debated whether I should even go because I knew it would be really difficult for me to find my class among so many students. I was nervous, but I walked into the auditorium and saw a teacher. I felt a huge sense of relief because I thought I could ask for help. I asked her if she knew where Miss Marsh's class was and explained that I couldn't see very well. It was so helpful to me when she pointed in a direction I couldn't make out and walked away quickly without saying anything. Thank you. Next is Violet.
Hi, I would like to shout out Miss Williamson and Mr. Feldberg's first period English class. This is a piece I wrote about how I got my hearing aids and what that adjustment was like for me. I hope you enjoy. I grew up in a family where both of my parents and all four of my brothers needed glasses and have horrible vision. Ironically, I have 20/20 vision, so you might be thinking to yourself, you're so lucky, you got the good genes. I guess you could say that. I'm happy I don't need glasses, but I got something much worse: hearing loss. The hearing loss kind of just came out of nowhere. There's no history of any hearing loss on either side of my family. Doctors didn't discover that I had it until I was in 2nd grade. So my parents thought that maybe I just lost my hearing sometime growing up, which would make sense given the fact that I have 4 older brothers, because things would get loud around the house with 4 little boys screaming and playing with trucks and Legos. But that was not the case. I was born with my hearing loss. No one knew until I was 8 years old. That young of an age, and I was already falling behind in my classes in elementary school. That was frustrating because it put me behind my peers beyond 2nd grade. You might say to yourself, well, you got hearing aids, right? Doesn't that just make everything better? Not necessarily. It makes things a lot louder, that's for sure. But it's never made things clearer. It's like putting on glasses and you can see all of a sudden. Hearing aids take adjustment, and they'll never be fully adjusted to them. I've found I still have trouble hearing even with my hearing aids in, which sucks, but I've found some positives to it. For example, I've learned how to read lips really well. I know some sign language, and I've taught some of my friends how to sign so we can talk without speaking. One of the best positives is that I can take my hearing aids out and just have silence, which comes in handy during tests, loud noises, and when my siblings are being annoying. One of my all-time favorite features of my hearing aids is that they are Bluetooth. I can listen to music or watch videos on my phone, and I will be able to hear it because my hearing aids have the power to transmit the sound to where I can hear it through the Bluetooth. Of course, it's not always positive. Bullying has occurred throughout my life, and I used to think that it's because I was different and I will never be treated equally by my peers. But as I've grown up, I've been proven wrong. I've been accepted by people, I have my family, who I love to death, and the amazing friends that I've made along the way. Both of my parents are music teachers, and all of my brothers grew up playing an instrument. Before I was diagnosed with hearing loss, my parents started me on piano. I played piano while finding out about my hearing loss, and ended up playing for 8 years. The piano was difficult a lot of the time because I couldn't hear myself playing. Then, once I got my hearing aids, it just made the piano sound louder, not clearer. I thought to myself, I'll never be able to play an instrument as good as my brothers because of my disability. I'll never be able to hear myself play, so what's the point? My parents noticed this and encouraged me to try another instrument to go along with the piano. I liked this idea a lot because playing the piano could help me get the hang of another instrument because I already knew how to read notes. When I was in 3rd grade, they started me on French horn. That lasted about 3 months. Then, in the middle of 3rd grade, my dad asked me if I was interested in the clarinet. I was really eager to try it, and I liked the instrument and played it for about 2 years. Then, around the end of my 4th grade year, I started to realize that the clarinet was not for me, because I still couldn't fully hear myself, and I just wasn't getting the hang of it. My dad is a retired band director, so at the time, he decided to take me to work with him one day and let me try out the different instruments to see which one spoke to me. I tried out the saxophone, percussion. I even went as far as trying out an orchestra instrument. Then I went over to the little brass area, and I was blown away by the huge instruments. Immediately, I ran to the trombone. I was really excited to try it as my dad was helping me position my hands correctly to hold the instrument. And then I played my first note. It was like a spark lit up in my heart. I fell in love with the trombone so fast and knew that would be my forever instrument. It was perfect because the trombone is scientifically proven to be the loudest instrument, so I was able to hear myself. I felt like the happiest person alive. I'm still playing the trombone to this day. I have no regrets about the instrument I chose because my life would be so different right now if I had played anything else. I'm currently in the top band, which is Wind Symphony here, and I'm thriving and having an amazing time with my section. In the end, what I used to think was a weakness has proven to be a strength because it has shaped me into who I am today, and I am proud of that. Thank you. Next up is Mare.
Hi, my name is Mare. I wrote this poem a while ago for myself, but later revised it for Writers' Week. Before we knew to read, to converse, we drew. Before there was a common time, a textbook, or a computer, we sketched. Hand-drawn depictions of family, of animals and love. Small children slapped their hands onto cave walls, paint made of fat, blood, and wild pigment, enunciating each and every finger filled with the grooves and indents of prints and life. Sharp stones picked into the gravel to create something with a soul. The envy and ignorance as you write your cheap words to a soulless bind of code made up of ones and zeros to create an image filled with your own indolence.
Artificial intelligence has no soul, for instead of 5 silhouetted fingers, there are 6 abhorrent shapes. Thank you. Next up is Ayana.
Hello, I'm Ayana Khan. I'm Ayana Khan from Mrs. Inc.'s first period class. And for context, my sister graduated college and decided to be a pessimist for the rest of her life. And one day when we were fighting from back home from a family party, she decided to say, "Why do we even care about living? Everything's just gonna end anyways." And I said, "Okay." So I wrote this. I don't really have a name for it. My throat is raw with things I won't say, so I take a moment and call it restraint. I have fallen victim to the hypocrisy that drips from this country's tongue. We say land of the free, home of the brave, yet cling to moving media and trends, as if a new bag could rinse the shame from our hands. Too loyal to a logo, too fearful to loosen our grip on livelihood stitched from blood and silence, this country. Built upon built upon built until the foundation forgets what it's standing on. Children sent away while their parents are thrown from roads and kitchen, their stories never allowed to finish themselves, and still we scroll, we repost, we brush it aside. When it flickers across our phones, it's repetitive. I'm annoyed. We repost the red hand. You scroll past Congo, 6 million lives lost, not over centuries, but within a generation. Numbers reported in fragments, as if genocide could shrink. When it becomes inconvenient to you, believe me, I have fallen victim too. I wake with choice for events where I'm allowed voice, while children die without autonomy. A girl eager to grow older, erased before she could try, one name among thousands, reduced to a statistic before she could turn 10. Parents who write their children's names on skin, while mine had low notes for competitions barely 40 miles away. I am insured to live. I say I'm sorry and keep benefiting anyways. Indigenous people's silence where native becomes a passing word. When it disrupts a narrative, you're women missing, forgotten, counted only in totals, as if accounting were justice. Children forced to sow my comfort while I wear them without question, mistaking convenience for innocence. Was I ever really sorry? Or just grateful? It wasn't my name being counted, because I'm not hunted for existing. I'm not raised in fear. I am not taught survival before I learned the alphabet. And to say I have fallen victim while ignoring the fallen, that may be the most patriotic thing of all. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, or with freedom and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Next up is Ara.
Hi, I'm Ara, and I want to give a shout out to Ms. Kohler's first period class. I also want to thank my friends and family who came here to support me today. Oscar ran past the hill with his wide smile showing a missing gap between his teeth, abruptly slipping onto his red bike up the hill to their home, where his grandpa Ethel stood waiting, on their old tattered porch surrounded by wood that squeaks, from pressure and rotting metal hinges. He pushes his newsboy cap up, trying to block the sun from his eyes. Far in the distance, a man with a plague doctor mask and feathers of a raven observed, his head tilted in thoughts. He slowly turned his attention upon Larsos, the seventh reaping of death in the world. Larsos, tell me why thou hast yet to send the whisper of death to the two who live not so far from our view, the raven asked. Larsos just stares, not looking back, nor forward, but at the boy who hugs his grandfather so eagerly it would startle the wind into emptiness. He doesn't need to know. There is so little mortals understand, but a boy his age is none the wiser. He replies in a cool tone, as if stating something rather than just simply responding. The raven shakes his head slowly in disbelief. Mad as a hatter, aren't you? The grandfather is dead. He has been dead for years, centuries even. Yet you believe they do not even be aware of this? It's absurd. Larsos cut him off during his rant, clearly ignorant of the situation facing them, or maybe hiding something from him. The boy is dead, but not the grandfather, Raylo. That is why the grandfather has aged while the boy has yet to flourish. I apologize for the lies I may have fed you. The raven, now known as Raylo, paused, slowly facing Larsos before rubbing the temple of his mask. Then how can he see the boy? No living soul can eye the dead with such precision, yet let alone understanding. He looks back at the scene where Oscar and Grandpa Ethel were sitting together on a rocking chair. So hopeful yet guilty turmoil flows in Ethel, as if he knew the boy was dead, but denial refused to shine the light of truth on the reality facing him. The grandfather is in denial, Lars was confirmed to Raylo, who stood silently next to him. He believes he is the cause of the boy's passing, and from that the boy's soul is stuck in the mortal plane, unable to rest nor pass until he lets go. Raylo slowly frowned underneath the mask. A mutual understanding filled the once crystalline air. Days, perhaps weeks, or even months would pass, and the same routine repeated over and over. Soon Ethel got worse. His condition started weakening. He knew his time was coming, but he had to do one last thing before he could ever leave this bitter world. In his bed, he looked back at Oscar, his sweet grandson, who stood there so scared and lost. How could he have ever been so selfish, forcing the boy to be trapped with him, never to leave this world and rest forevermore? He slowly placed the boy's hands in his, before a tear trailed down. The ache of guilt burned like a restless flame in his chest. It hurt so much, but he stood there with the lighter in his hand. All of it was by his doing. Oscar, I'm so sorry. He choked on weak sobs as his heartbeat slowly but surely was fading. He was running out of time, yet he was so relieved he was. Ethel wiped the tears away before slowly smiling and grasped Oscar's hands in a tight embrace before finishing both their journeys. Be free like a bird, he said softly, his gaze full of love and reassurance for the boy who needed him most. He watched Oscar slowly fade, the light of the sun consuming the young boy whole. But time was limited, and Ethel's eyes slowly fluttered. A final hesitant motion, and all that remained was silence.
All right, let's give one more round of applause for all of these wonderful writers. And we do have a little bit of time left, so we're going to start with a question that I have for our writers, and then maybe we'll see if some people have additional things they want to share. People from Miss Ink's class, she said maybe you would. No pressure, no pressure. All right. So this was a question that was asked yesterday if you were in here, 5th hour, and it's one of my favorite questions to learn about our writers, and that is, where do you like to write? And that can be like where, when, all of those kinds of things. Where is the best place for you to write? You can just take this and then just go ahead and pass it down, okay?
I just like writing whenever I get an idea. Usually it's from my own personal experiences or watching how others view the world.
I like writing, and working on things with other people.
I like writing by my family because they give good ideas.
Usually when I'm alone and I'm sitting with my thoughts.
I like writing in my bathroom.
I usually write in my room at like 3 a.m.
Pretty much in my bedroom when I'm supposed to be asleep.
I usually write when I'm in the midst of just emotions. I think personally it's the best time to write it out.
Thank you. Okay, well, you can give them a round of applause. Wonderful. I do think there tends to be a pattern of writing when we're supposed to be sleeping or writing when it's the middle of the night. And I guess, as a parent, if my kids were staying up writing, I would maybe allow it, I think. All right, our next question is either, because I think we have maybe all grades up here. So either, what is your favorite Writers Week memory, or what are you most looking forward to the rest of the week? And that memory can be 20 minutes ago or maybe a few years ago, depending on how old you are. Here we go.
I think one of my favorite Writers' Week memories was actually meeting Luangang last year. She was a very lovely person to talk to.
Probably 2 years ago when I saw Fanboys as a freshman.
Yeah, same thing. When I saw Fanboys, when I was a freshman 3 years ago.
Mr. Dawson threw a pick at my eye.
I'm excited to see Fanboys this week because I did not get to see them at all last year.
I'm excited to see Mr. T perform.
I like yesterday when she said your comfort zone is a dangerous place.
I'm excited to see other future writers here.
Amazing. Thank you. I love how those answers are so varied, right? Yeah, absolutely. So different parts of Writers Week are the most valuable, most important for each person. Did we decide yes? Yeah. All right. So we are going to have Sharon come back to the podium to share a little more writing with us.
Hi, I wrote this poem for my English class. It's an Abecedarian and Golden Shovel poem based on ABBA's Winner Takes It All. Across it is known that it does not ask permission before inventing its own gods. Beneath their silence, obedience as law, that survival is something, that mortals may climb beyond the laws written in constellations, daring to reach what they throw down upon us without warning. Rules we never agreed to memorize, simply part of being an experiment in their hands, where life is reduced to chance, a roll of dice. From thrones, they watch the struggle without blinking, claiming detachment as wisdom, their gravity pulling us toward expectations we never chose. Our minds, however fiercely we resisted, in proximity to power, and how closely one can imitate the center, as if warmth itself were weakness, leaving hearts engineered out cold. Just so, to avoid responsibility for the lives frozen beneath them in ice. Knowing this, somewhere beneath their calculations, there is always someone leaving behind the maps drawn by divine hands, stepping further away, miles from obedience, carrying stories that were never meant to be told, down no longer where history rarely looks, where gods never look, where voices are buried here. Onwards, the cost of refusing destiny is unbearable. Every step forward, someone loses pieces of themselves. Sacrifice becomes language, and grief becomes inheritance. Someone quietly disappearing, leaving behind echoes of what once felt possible, what once felt dear. Remembering the stories told in the mythology of power, there must always be a winner, so that the rest of us appear necessary casualties, proof that the system works. Suffering takes the shape of destiny rather than design, until the lie becomes so familiar like truth itself. It, unto resistance, is irrelevant, repeated so often that it is inevitable. Against the weight of all, very slowly, the privilege masquerades as virtue reveals the truth. The war there is to challenge them, only exhaustion, only the slow erosion of hope that the loser's senile illusions of freedom, rewriting fate, dissolves into quiet acceptance. Rebellion itself has yielded until even the act of walking forward feels like falling, finally learning how to zero the end of the journey, only the inevitable knowledge of those that had to fall. Thank you.
This is also an Abecedarian I wrote for Mrs. Ang's class. All I've taught you to be proud for what you've come to see. I've had liberty, doubts of leaving home to build. It's everything I've ever known. It's fear I've missed out, fear I'll keep missing out because of greed. They'll call it that. Wanting more than survival, holding on to what I've had, what I've left. I don't hold fear, but for you, who I have made, just in life, just in your senses, unfortunately beautiful, unfortunately loud, at airports, lingering longer than it should. Maybe you'll feel you never fully belong every time you forget home, but home is how you own yourself, how you make yourself a person. Please don't think that this was a loss. Question nothing about the life you have been handed. Rest in knowing I brought you here to belong. Seen through different eyes, this country has changed. Towers fell and skin became suspect. Under suspicion, I learned to let ignorance pass. Very little scares me now. What I fear is a world you're inheriting. Xenophobia sharpens quietly, but you are here to be American, not as failure, but as your own culture, your own life. Zero regret. I left you so you could be in.
Okay, thank you so much. We have time for one more question that I am going to ask each of our writers. So last night I finished reading a book with my 6-year-old. It was called Bad Food, and it's about a slice of pizza and an ice cream cone and a tater tot that are on the run in an elementary school. And we finished reading it for the second time last night, and he said tonight he wants to start it again. And so my question for you is, what book have you read more than once? And it can be one that you read when you were 6 years old, or maybe it is a book that you read in high school that you enjoyed so much you read it again.
And There Were None by Agatha Christie.
Miscalculations of Lightning Girl.
Out of My Mind.
Emma by Jane Austen.
Golden Arm.
The Bible.
And mine is Pickle Things, written by the author of the Arthur series. That's a big read in our family. So if these are books that these people thought were worthy of reading more than once, they'd be a great recommendation for you. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. And we'll see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow. And you can come up, you can say hi, you can check out the books we have for sale by our wonderful visiting authors. Thank you so much.